I will never forget the way I got my first job as a UX designer because it happened in a pretty unusual and, even to me, unexpected way. Instead of going the usual route of finding jobs to apply for and sending in my resume and cover letter, maybe going to an interview and then hoping for a positive outcome, it was something else that got me this job. Without having to write a formal cover letter, I was actually able to get the attention of the right people to show off my design skills and my ways of thinking. And in the end, I was able to show how having me on the team would add value to the company. So I wanted to tell my story in this video because I think it's a good example of how you don't always have to follow the expected path to get a job, and how thinking differently can actually help you stand out from the crowd. But first, let me know how you found your first UX design job. Maybe you started with an internship, maybe you were lucky and just landed your dream job from day one. Leave a comment below and let me know how you found your first job as a designer. And of course, if you enjoy this video, don't be shy clicking that like button. I really appreciate it. All right, let's get to it. So last year, I was trying to find a job as a UX designer. I had decided to change the focus of my career over towards product design, coming from a business background originally. I have a business degree and I had worked in marketing for several years before this. And so I had just gotten to a point where I realized that I wanted to do something else with my life. So here I was trying to make a leap from one career path to another. And so my first instinct was to find a bunch of jobs and apply for them, because that's what you do, right? Now, since I was switching over from a different field, I didn't really have a lot of experience and past design work that I could show off. And so it was kind of a challenge for me to figure out how I could stand out from all the other people applying for the same jobs. I did manage to get a few interviews, but I kept getting rejected more or less always for the same reason. We've decided to go with someone with more design experience with you. A total bummer, but also understandable. I mean, I was new in the field and I was trying to compete with all of these other talented people applying for the same jobs that had a lot more experience on their resume. Apart from applying for jobs, I was also working on a few different side projects to practice my design skills and to build up some work that I could show off in a portfolio. Some projects were concepts for new apps based on ideas that I had myself, and others were redesigns of existing apps. I also spent quite a lot of time reading blog posts on Medium where other designers were using the platform to share their case studies and design projects. And so from that, I quickly got the idea of starting to share some of the projects that I was working on. One of the projects I was working on at the time was a redesign project of a food marketplace app called Too Good To Go. Now, I was already a user of the app myself. I really liked it, but I always felt like there were several things that could be improved about the app experience. So I spent quite a bit of time working on this project, in which I talked to other users of the app to try to understand some of the problems that they were having that the current app wasn't solving. And then based on these insights, I came up with new solutions and improvements to the UX UI of the app. Once I felt like I had enough to share, I created a blog post on Medium in which I gave an overview of what I had done in the project. I talked about why I was doing this, how I had structured the project, how I had interviewed other users, what some of the insights were, and then finally what some of my suggested new designs would look like. So basically, I showed how I would go about improving the app, not just based on my own ideas, but on insights from talking to other users and by including that insight into the design process. I was lucky enough to get my post published on one of the publications on Medium that focuses on UX design, called UX Planet. I was already following UX Planet and I knew that a lot of other designers were using the platform to share their redesigned case studies. So I submitted my article and they chose to publish it. And that was both exciting and terrifying. It was exciting to get some recognition for the work that I had done and to see my work all of a sudden being published on a blog that I knew a lot of other really great designers were reading. And terrifying because at the same time that meant that my work was out there for anyone to see and potentially criticize. So once the article was published, it didn't take long for someone at Too Good To Go to see it and get in touch with me. They were excited to read my ideas, and I got a lot of really positive feedback from the people that had worked on the app that I was doing project on. So that was really cool experience. And that was pretty much it. I kind of moved on, started working on the next project and went back to applying for several different jobs until about 6 months later when I got a message on LinkedIn from a product designer at Too Good To Go. He had read my article and asked if I wanted to come into their office for a chat and a cup of coffee, which obviously I accepted. So I went into the office a couple days later, shook his hand, and at that point he told me that a couple of other people would be joining the meeting as well. And that turned out to be the CTO and a product designer. And so what I had expected would just be a casual coffee and chat kind of situation turned out to be a job interview. And at that moment, I honestly was pretty shocked. I mean, I totally was not ready for an interview, and I was also just super surprised that they were considering me for a position as a product designer on their team. But they did, and the interview actually went really well. I learned that they were looking to bring in a new designer to the product team to work on new features that they had planned and just generally improve the app. So it really just sounded like a dream job to me, and yeah, I really just couldn't believe that I was being considered for this job. But it all went really well, and the meeting ended with me being offered the job. And so I said yes and started working there about a month later. So I started the job and I kind of couldn't really believe how it had happened. I mean, I wrote the blog post not at all thinking that that would lead to a job, and that's exactly what happened. I think I was stuck in the mindset of how things are usually done, which is you apply for a bunch of jobs, you go to some interviews, and then maybe you're lucky enough to get picked. But this was different because I did something that people usually wouldn't consider would be a path to getting a job, and in this case it was. Now, of course, for me, there was a lot of luck involved here. I was lucky to get my blog post published on a pretty large publication on Medium. I was lucky that Too Good To Go found my article, read it, and actually liked my ideas. And then that 6 months later, they were looking to hire a designer for their team. So yeah, definitely a lot of luck involved, and I'm not saying that this is something that will work for everyone, but it's definitely opened my eyes to look beyond the traditional way of doing things like getting a job and getting what you want. Because often the reason why we're doing things in a certain way isn't rational, it's just the way things are. And so if you can find a different way of getting what you want, usually that's something that will help you stand out from everyone else. So that would be my one takeaway from this story, and something that I thought of since then. If you're looking to achieve something like find a new job, maybe look beyond the way that everyone else is approaching it and try to find a different way to reach your goal. All right, guys, that was my story. I hope it was inspiring, and I hope it helps you find new and creative ways of finding that dream job. If you like this video, feel free to leave a comment, and as always, I really appreciate a like on this video right there. I think it's there. Thanks, guys.